Professor, I'm on the verge of a breakthrough. I need the chemical.
Where do you think you are just coming in? Is this about the girls again?
Yes.
Or the last time, Utonium? You can't just make little girls by throwing things into a pot. Who do you think you are?
I'm a scientist. I'll show you. You'll see. I'll make my little girls and change the world forever.
Fine. Take it. See if I care. As far as anyone's concerned, you're a cartoon character anywho.
I'll show you. You'll see. My science will change the world.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X. Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born. Using their ultra superpowers, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup have dedicated their lives to fighting crime and the forces of evil.
So, when trying to come up with what we wanted to do for this project, we figured that the Powerpuff Girls would have enough science backing it to warrant revolving our project around it.
We wanted to see whether or not we could figure out how it was possible for the professor to create children, and what we discovered was really interesting.
Before getting ourselves too deep into it, we realized that we had to draw a line when it came to how close we had to get to make a real human. Because if we didn't, then we'd have a more graphic and grim outcome than what is presented to us, which is that the professor did make a child, like 3 children in the end.
With that in mind, we looked out what humans are actually made up of: hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, sodium, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, potassium, calcium, and trace amounts of both iron and iodine. We asked, did the professor even get the right elements? Without these, you simply cannot make a functioning human.
So let's start with what we know: sugar, spice, and everything nice. The easiest to talk about is sugar, which is a simple carbohydrate we use daily. It consists of 12 carbon atoms, 22 hydrogen atoms, and 11 oxygen atoms. These 3 elements compose of roughly 93% of the human body. And when we take into account the professor's putting a lot of this stuff in, we can tell that this makes sense.
The next ingredient is spice. But what exactly is spice? Well, we see the professor unloading a small container filled with a flaky substance, and following the logic of sugar, spice, in this case, is just black pepper, the world's most common spice. The makeup of black pepper is complicated, but for 97% of the makeup of black pepper, the main ingredient is a compound called pepperine, which consists of 17 atoms of carbon, 19 atoms of hydrogen, and 1 atom of nitrogen, and 3 atoms of oxygen.
The final ingredient is the hardest to nail: everything nice. In the actual intro of the show, we see the professor dumping in rainbows, unicorns, and other silly things. For this, we had to dig a little, and we found in a later episode, the Powerpuff Girls tried to make a sister using the general formula. Now, based on our logic, we can only make a new girl if all of the elements are present in some form. And in that scene, they throw in everything that they think is nice, including what we believe is represented by the intro: stuffed animals.
The makeup of many toys is cotton and cotton fibers, which we were able to find the chemical makeup of: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, potash, which is a salt comprised of 2 atoms of potassium per 1 atom of oxygen, phosphate, which has 2 atoms of phosphorus per 5 atoms of oxygen, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. With stuffed cotton toys into the mixture, we found we had every single element needed to make a person except 2: iron and iodine.
And that's where Chemical X comes in. This black liquid, and considering that iodine can and usually is found as a liquid, we can already see similar properties to our missing elements. Now, we only need trace amounts of iron and iodine. So it is likely that the substance that we have currently is a vial of iron iodide. Now, we could also assume, because it is enclosed in a closed bottle, that this mixture is also highly reactive to oxygen. Now, when chemical X is thrown into the professor's mixture, our mixture, of course, having large amounts of oxygen, we see a violent and instantaneous reaction, creating a new, very complicated compound known as a Powerpuff Girl.
Honestly, we used this project to shed light on what was originally an old nursery rhyme taken literally by a cartoon. Most people would have scoffed at the introduction as nothing serious, but who other than the professor could have known that all you need was sugar, spice, and everything nice, and a bottle of highly reactive iron iodine.